there are two characters from Frosty that people were popping off about. One is her, and the other is Anji. So we're gonna talk about Anji first. They actually have a couple of things in common why they had such an impact, but we're gonna talk about Anji first because I would say the majority of the upsets were caused by this character. So we're gonna talk about Anji again. Because last time I talked about Anji, actually, I was like, this character is struggling, which was definitely true at the time. Because it was the previous Season 2 patch. The first question you might have is, what did they do to Anji between... I probably made that video in like October or so, and February. Like, what actually happened? And to be honest, they didn't do that much to him. To be honest... The main important change from a countermeasure, like, oh, I'm playing against Anji perspective, honestly, is this. And specifically, how he has enough time to, like, run up and meet you. Previously, he couldn't get soft knockdowns that were meaningful. A bunch of characters had this issue, but Anji had it big time too. And before, I basically thought that, oh, he's so committal. Like, a lot of his pokes are not that fast, like, his forward slash, 2/. He's easy-ish to whip punish, so he has to commit really hard on what he's doing, right? So that's big change number one. The second biggest change is this launching, so that he gets more combos. So he has reward, more meaningful reward on stuff, both in conversion ability and situations. But this leads into the third factor and why he causes so many upsets, is that actually he's just not a common character. So because he's not a common character, right? Like, if I was to go to the character select screen, let's do this. So, if I was to look at this character select screen, and we were talking about like tournament players who are prepping for a tournament like Frosty Faustings, there's some characters that you always need to be very current against, right? So, example, Leo. Like, every tournament you go to, you absolutely must be prepared for Leo. If you're not ready for Leo, not only are many of the top players of this game, many of them play Leo, but you could lose to it randomly. It can literally happen to you. This character can do it. He is the MVP of Guilty Gear Strive tournaments. This guy. So, you always have to be ready for him. You always have to be ready for Nago. We see Nago all the time. Nago does mad damage. We don't have to talk about him, right? A sleeper one that you would have to be ready for, then, so I gave you a couple of easy ones, right? It's May. You have to be ready for May at Super Majors, right? Not only did they buff her, but you have to worry about Slash traveling from EMEA, right? So if you're not good against May, and you're playing against the best May, you're fucked, okay? So, the thing is, there are common characters you need to be prepared for. Leo Weifang, Nago, Ram, HC, you know, the usual suspects. And there are some more uncommon ones like May, Zato, Gold Lewis, depending on the tournament, right? Now, on top of this, though, so we have the characters we expect to varying degrees, but then we have other characters in the game, right? So, of course, we have other characters in the game, but what do I mean? The main thing is, if you've watched like videos about me talking about tiers and stuff, I always put Anji as like, I don't know, I don't have a lot of EXP, blah, blah, blah. It's very common. Like, a lot of people who compete don't have a lot of experience against uncommon characters for brackets. So, characters like Anji, low-key like Baiken, like Testament for a while, and for this weekend, a lot of people were talking about Bridget and how like they feel like they're not prepared for Bridget. So, Anji being not so common helps the Anji player. So why do you get a buff from people not knowing your character? Well, that should be like pretty obvious, right? Like most matchups, especially like the meta matchups. Remember when I was thinking about what character to switch to, and I was really thinking about like, should I play HC or should I play Baiken? I went with Baiken, and one of the reasons why is the catch-up factor, where many top players of this game know the Happy Chaos matchup well, and many of the top tiers, so like your Ram, Nago, depending on the version, Leo Whitefang, they all do well against HC, and people have all that EXP. Where Baiken is a little bit more uncommon, even though many people agree that she's really good. People aren't used to dealing first them, so I was like, oh, if I'm gonna learn a new character, then I should put time into a character that's not that common, so I can make up for the knowledge gap, as opposed to if I switch to like Leo. Leo probably would have been okay, but like HC probably would have been a big one, a big difficulty. Ram as well. So Anji has a few things that if you don't know how to deal with, it could be really annoying, and he has a lot of return on these things. So for example, one is not that. It's just spin in general. Different characters can do this in different ways, like deal with this in different ways. If you don't really know the matchup, then what people tend to do is they'll like dash block and then they'll see it and they'll try to throw. That's good. That's certainly a good tactic. The only problem is you start enabling a bunch of stuff if you do that as your main thing. So you have to worry about this, you have to worry about this, you have to worry about this, and you have to worry about random this way more. So ideally you have something else and not just dash block, which would be really nice. Another thing that catches people off guard is he's one of the few characters that have this type of thing, this stalling tool. Baiken has one too. Baiken has a couple actually. Of course, Emilia has many ways to stall. Kai has many ways to stall. I typically see people not deal with this very well, and Anji is pretty good in that like Baiken kind of bounces back, where Anji's just like quick stop and falling buttons. So he's really actually pretty good at baiting anti-airs. And he also moves way further than people would expect considering his appearance. So like his air dash is pretty far, and then his super jump air dash is pretty far. His super jump is higher than you think. He keeps dash momentum really well, especially on super jump like that. So he's kind of schmoving a little bit. Is definitely this. This is the last one. And there's a lot to say about Fusion, because Fusion is not a mix-up tool, but it has strong options and it's good at conditioning. And originally, like for example, he has like this overhead follow-up. This was like way slower, but now I believe it's like 21 frames, and the return is extremely high with meter. You get like a full combo of I'm pressing buttons, but like I was already able to launch and stuff like that. Then he has this with variable timing, and honestly this. I think these are probably like the main three options people have to worry about. And of course you do Fusion nothing. Because he's not that common, a lot of people's like Fusion countermeasures are either outdated or not practiced. And in my opinion, I think what you need to do is specifically practice block, like just sit there and practice blocking it. Like all the old stuff, like all the season 1 stuff of like, oh, just hold up, he has to like, this is what people used to do. Okay, so let's do this. Let's get a couple of these. Oops. So I have 4 recordings, and what people used to do is they would just like delay jump, because Rin was never airtight, and then everything else has like pretty big gaps, right? But the thing is, the main problems with this is, one, you're not paying attention to what the opponent is doing when you do this, and 2, the other issue is he could just delay Nagiha and then screw you over. So I think it's better just practice actually trying to react to it like once every, I don't know, once every 9-10 days, something like that, depending on where you are with like your personal matchups, what you want to work on. But I think he's in a good spot as far as like him as a character. Just him having more return, him being able to convert more, and him being able to make meaningful situations off soft knockdowns really big. But again, I don't think it's that he got changed a lot. I think it's that he definitely improved and people didn't prepare for him, and that's where the big upsets came from. And a lot of people struggle with this. I mean, I struggled with this matchup too. I definitely took time to try to like fight this character better. So in my case, this weekend Anji was big chillin', but a lot of people rightfully so took also Anji, and like I said, Bridget is right there. Like probably the biggest character, the character I lost to the most this weekend in casuals was Bridget. And I would say, of course, we don't care too much about, oh, I beat this person in casual, I beat XYZ in casuals, I lost ABC, but you do pay attention to how you're doing against characters, because you know you're trying to keep track of like where you are, your progress, what you want to do in the future, right? So the single character I lost to the most was Bridget, for sure, one other character. So these things are still there despite people developing the game. How do y'all feel though? Any questions?